Good question. I don't know. It seems a little amped up, maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, it's up there, which is it's interesting. It's interesting to see. That's for sure. Um, I can't quite give you a gauge. I think it's up a little bit more. If I had to, you know, put it one way or the other, Mike. And it's again like I've been telling you guys, it's managing that a little bit, right? So I actually had kind of in my weekly plan we were going to have another hard one today, but we kind of dialed it back today and made it more of a non-contact offensive review shooting practice this morning, and then we'll try to get the defensive competitiveness back in there again tomorrow. So I think it's certainly hitting the radar that we're having to make some adjustments, if that helps.
Yeah, I think one of them mentioned yesterday that even the trash talk is higher than it normally would be. Have you noticed that?
Well, again, the competitive nature's up there, right? It's really coming out, and that seems to go with that stuff sometimes, right? Yeah, it's there's a lot of juice in there, a lot of juice in the building, and a lot of good high spirit. It's all good natured stuff. I mean, it's competitive natured stuff, but it's all been fine.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Stay well.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Next up, we have Doug.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Doug. How are you?
All right, thanks. I think you've gone, 2 weeks in Naples and now a week in Orlando, and now you don't play a game for another 8 days. What's the challenge going to be to keep them engaged basketball-wise for this extended period of time?
Yeah, Doug, it is a challenge, and it's interesting. It's something that we really don't go through. Even in training camp, we're usually playing by about the 5th day. Like in front of like 20,000 people. We're out in Vancouver or whatever. We probably have had an inter squad scrimmage at a university or something before that too. So it is interesting. I think it's again, you're doing a lot of a little bit more like we've started doing, on, off, a lot of review and things like that. And again, just trying to build up some of that, just some strength really, and some endurance. And it's given us a chance to do that. And I think it's smart, I think it's smart from everybody's perspective to do that. And hopefully it'll be a plus on the injury prevention side. I think that's really the goal, is to give them time to kind of get their legs back underneath them and do some of that.
You had told us weeks and weeks ago that you had been intrigued by the jumbo lineup, watching it on film with OG, Pascal, Mark, and Serge. Have you had a chance to work with it? And what benefits or drawbacks does it create not having Kyle and Fred on the floor at the same time?
Well, I think, the benefits are Doug, I think that the first thing it was interesting. We kind of got forced into it again, right? And we kind of accepted, okay, here's where we are. Let's go. And defensively right away, it was awesome, right? It was just like, I think we started, again, I'm not the greatest at remembering exactly, but it seems to me we started really dominant on the defensive end with the jumbo lineup. So that was good that you weren't, that the size could handle the speed, the quickness, that kind of stuff, the shooting. Usually, you're when you're too big, you can't keep up, or you can't get back, or you can't guard all the pick and roll actions or whatever. But didn't. That's the one nice thing about some of our size and length. Like from OG to Pascal to Rondé, these guys can go out and move their feet and guard, a good majority of the perimeter players. So there's the plus. I don't know what the drawback is. I didn't see one really. I mean, I think that I think again you would think okay, so the defense was good. Maybe the offense would be out of rhythm, or something like that. And I think having one of Fred or Kyle out there kind of keeps those things moving. There's probably a little less comfortability in certain guys playing some of our screen and roll actions or two-man game actions. But, again, we like to encourage Pascal either setting or handling. We want to get OG to that point where he's a handler and a setter. So we want our, Norm and Fred, Kyle, OG, Pascal, probably leaving somebody out there, that we want them to be versatile enough to be in part of all kinds of our two-man actions.
Great. Thanks. Just one more, Nick.
Yep.
Do you expect, with the amount of time teams have had, to see a lot of new stuff from opponents, like totally off the wall stuff that you might not have ever expected to see because they've had time to change or work on different things? And how can you anticipate guarding that or playing that?
Well, I think, Doug, that you'll see a lot of new stuff. I think from a play call, play set standpoint, I just think that all the time, you alluded to it in your first question, all the time you kind of think, well, what else is to do? Well, why don't we put in a whole new series of stuff, or why don't we, whatever. And I think, yeah, that may, become a factor. I still think that, once teams start playing, they're going to use some of this stuff. And then you're going to be kind of right back to where you always are. You see it, now you got to prepare for it. And then you got to be, again, one of our strengths of our team is we can adjust pretty quickly. If there's something, again, we kind of like to coach or play against actions rather than set plays, and we shouldn't see an action. We're like, oh my God, we've never seen that type of action before. We may not have seen it in the same sequence that we're used to seeing it with this particular team. Then you just, again, make your adjustments from there and make some more at halftime, make them game to game. I think the scouting and stuff will be important, will be important, because I think you're right. I think you'll see teams look a little different at the start.
Great. Thanks very much, Nick.
Next, we'll go to Blake.
Hey, Coach. Great sweater.
Blake, what? Thanks, man.
I know you had just mentioned Pascal handling a little bit more, and maybe you don't want to get more specific than that, but in the time that you've had to go back and look at what happened in the first 64 games, did you see things in how successful you guys were coming out of timeouts and late in close games that, you think you can maybe take over to the first 45 minutes of games or so, where sometimes the offense got jammed up a bit?
Good question. I think it's well, it's a tough one to, you kind of battle with that stuff a lot, right? I mean, the best answer I could probably give you, one time I was fortunate enough to be in Hubie Brown's house, and I asked him the question of, should we save stuff till the end? And he kind of said, what the hell are you saving it for? What are you waiting for? And that resonates a little bit. But I do also think that there is a little bit of late game offense, and it isn't so much sets and stuff. It's more who's got it. How can you attack a certain area or a certain player or matchup? There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. Are they switching? Are they pre-switching? How can you slip out and not, mess up the switch? And how can you cross and maybe get them? There's all kinds of little intricacies there that you're working on, late game, that I just don't think they're part of the regular part of the game, because the defenses are different and what they're doing too. So I'm pretty happy, like, with our comfortability of what we're doing through the course of the game, and then what we're doing late game. It's not like I sit here and say, oh my God, we can't score late in the game, or oh my God, we can't score in the third quarter, or we don't make our shots all the time, but I think the shots usually are there if we're doing what we're supposed to do. If we're running hard and cutting hard and respacing and doing the kind of foundational principles of kind of how we play, we usually are okay, Blake.
Great. Thanks so much, Coach.
Yep.
Next will be Eric Corrine.
Hey, Nick. Thanks so much for taking the time again. You mentioned OG handling the ball, too, 2 answers ago. Because he's sort of the least experienced offensive player in your normal starting lineup, it's easy to see a world in the playoffs where teams are sagging off him a bit. Maybe he's that guy. Do you, in the scrimmages and in the seeding games, do you maybe try and get him a little more get him a little more action just so he's ready for that type of scenario?
Yeah, I think that you can only, it's like all the guys you've seen kind of grow offensively, over the years as Raptors. And how do they grow? They grow with repetition and chances to do it, right? And chances to kind of live with some mistakes and learn from their mistakes and get better. And again, it's hard to get those reps sometimes when you're playing at high level games, because you got to kind of go to what works and who's done it before and all those things. But yeah, we certainly try to get him some freedom, similar to Pascal a couple years ago, where we'd like OG to bring it up the floor some and try to attack and transition and make plays. It's just gives him a chance to see the floor, see the offense, moving around, get it to the rim, work on the timing of what it looks like on a pick and roll, see the roller, see the weak side pass, etc. Just makes a better basketball player and develops the scoring ability. And yeah, we try to encourage that a lot in the practices and these early games we'll try to do it as well.
Along those lines, I mean, when we were all figuring out how this would work, the return to play would work, there were all sorts of ideas being thrown around, and some people were saying maybe you'd go straight into playoffs. For reasons like that, how thankful, just as a basketball coach of a team, are you that you have, like 11 games, including the scrimmages, before the playoffs?
Yeah, I think, Eric, it's like, we talked this, we're gonna have to take it whichever way it was,
yeah,
and be positive about it. So we've got it here. It seems like it's gonna be perfect. It's like we get a few games here, and we ought to be able to get everybody in the games and get everybody some reps. Be able to ease the vets in and out, and maybe get to a certain point in those 8 games, where we try to get the minutes ramped up to look like what they might look like when we need to, and then even pull back for a couple or something. So I think it's ideal,
Appreciate it, Nick. Stay safe and enjoy yourself.
You too, Eric. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Next, we'll go to Vivek with Complex Canada.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for doing this.
Hi, Vivek.
I know you've mentioned there's been a lot of review stuff over the past week. I'm curious what it's been like for you to get back in your groove. And has there been an element of watching the players now and saying, oh, wow, I forgot they added that to their game this season?
Well, I've certainly made my share of mistakes here, like getting sets in and trying to describe them and leave something out. So I got a little rust to work out too. Hopefully that'll change pretty quickly. And I think that it's going to be interesting, Vivek. On the other part of it, I think that there's kind of a Jimmy Sand kind of says, some people got better during the pandemic and some people got worse, and I got better or whatever. And it kind of applies to the players too. I think there are some guys that really worked on some skills and stuff. Let's see if it translates and how quickly it does. And I'm encouraged, I think, by what I've seen as far as, the seriousness at which guys worked on their skills. So maybe there'll be some pleasant surprises and trending upward on some guys.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
You're welcome, Vivek.
Next question goes to Steven with Sportsnet.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for doing
Steven?
Can't hear you, Steve.
Am I good now?
Yep,
now
you're good.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, you mentioned how teams possibly looking at adding new wrinkles to offense and their defensive sets. Like how much have you contemplated adding a bunch of new into your own sets for this restart? And so did you ultimately come to the decision that you wanted to add a bunch of new stuff?
Yeah, I've contemplated it a little bit. I think, we're gonna certainly add some things. I would say kind of our late game special situations will look, there's some additions there. And a lot of it's just like kind of building from what's there, right? Doing stuff that looks similar, but there's a counter or an addition to it. Or maybe moving the pieces around a little bit. That I consider that adding. It's maybe looks very similar, but it's not. That's part of the part of what we're going to try to do. That your set looks like something's coming and it changes to what maybe they thought was coming, and you get an open look. And certainly we've got a pretty good defensive catalog, right? And we're certainly considering using more of those things a little bit off and on and more sporadically. And I think we'll get a chance to test some of that stuff out. I think it's always tricky between testing it out and showing your hand versus just saving it and see if you can roll with it when you need it. So it's a little bit of both always running through your head. Keeps me thinking sometimes at night.
And in that sense, is that why the scrimmages would be kind of useful to you to potentially test out one or two of these concepts?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think I got a couple definite things I want to try out, and I talked to I think it was Doug a couple sessions ago about usually this at the end of the year. I mean, when we're playing the last 20 games of the year, that we are testing out a lot, especially a lot of ATO sets and things like that. And they're one-timers, and we evaluate them quickly and tuck them away or not tuck them away depending on what we think. So we'll probably do a little bit of that as well. Because we're just hitting that stage of the season. So we got to definitely do some of that, because a lot of that stuff was critical in the playoffs last year. We were digging up plays from February and March all the way into June. So that was critical to do.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Stephen.
Last question will go to Aaron Rose with SI.com.
Coach, thanks for doing this. I'm wondering, just with the way things feel down there, do you think that kind of the 7, 8, 9 guys kind of off your bench will play a more important role in this playoffs? Or do you think by the time things roll around, everyone will be settled and it will kind of seem like a regular playoffs kind of by in a few months or whatever?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I mean, I think it all depends on health, right? Like it does a lot in the playoffs. I just think that you're going to play 8, 9, right, in the playoffs. I think everybody kind of, you get to that point, every possession's so critical. But what happens if you miss one of those rotation guys, then you're right. Those other guys, get slotted up and things. And I think too, one thing that's for sure is, each series always seems to be so different. Sometimes there's a guy that just doesn't fit, and then maybe there's a series where, I don't know, a Chris Boucher or Rondé Hollis Jefferson or somebody that you maybe would, is kind of on the, is in the rotation, but towards the back of it, but maybe they get slotted in for a matchup or something. So I think it's always good to have, some versatility, maybe 12 guys you can use. You just never know who suits each series. But I do think with the scrimmages and the 8 games, the regular season 8 games, that you'll get a look at a lot of those guys. I think there's so many different variables playing in here that these guys will all get a shot to show what they can do.
So it sounds like you're forecasting a pretty standard playoffs like we've seen in years past.
Well, yeah, until the forecast, you know, until the clouds roll in and it looks a little different, and you got to change the forecast. I mean, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.